and a PhD in linguistics from the department.
I don't hear you. Hello? Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so somehow, for some reason, I didn't hear from Muthuraman, I think. So, am I ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. So, like you mentioned, that I am very proud to be an alumnus of Annamalai University. I enjoyed shaping up my career in the Annamalai University in 80s. So I have been from the University of Pennsylvania and other universities for the past 20 years. So I am thankful to you all for inviting me for this conference. I'm thankful to the conference director, Dr. Muthuraman, the convener, Dr. S. Karthik Kumar, Vice Chancellor Professor Kadiresan, and the head of the department, Professor Dr. Shanmugam. I am thankful to you all for inviting me for the conference. I hope the conference went well for the past 2 days. I'm sorry I couldn't be attending in person. So at least I'm able to join you on this day. Let me try to share my screen again. Okay, so you are able to see my screen.
Yes, yes.
My topic is basically on language maintenance among the Tamil diaspora. So as you know, for the past 20 years, I've been teaching Tamil language and literature to the diaspora students mainly. So there are some American students, but mainly my job was to teach Tamil to the heritage learners. We call them heritage learners. So I should admit that I haven't made a single native speaker of Tamil from the diaspora population. So that's something that we need to think about whether that is really possible. So before we go into the details of the diaspora and the language maintenance, let's go over some of the countries where Tamils are living. So possibly in Sri Lanka, I think they are like Tamil Nadu. You know, you can see many Tamil speakers, they don't have any issues with the maintenance of the language. We see many literary scholars there. So wherever you have literary scholars, wherever you have literary production in the diaspora country, you can very well say that language maintenance is in good condition, good status. So as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, we have many literary scholars. So also the first generation and the subsequent generations, the language maintenance in good shape. Even though they are considered diaspora, but as far as the language maintenance concerned and their culture and all, they should be considered as part of Tamil Nadu. But on the other hand, if you look at Singapore and Malaysia, we have many speakers there and first generation speakers, as well as the second generation speakers. There are some literary skill as well. We have many writers from both Malaysia and Singapore, poets from there. But unfortunately, the second generation struggles to maintain the language there. I had a chance to attend a conference recently in Singapore. When I told them that the second generation kids in Singapore should have a immersion there, but that's not the case. Even though they have an immersion in Singapore, the language maintenance there is like any other country. So among the second generation, particularly, that may be because the English influence, globalization, and all the other reasons. That is the only part I'm struggling to understand why the second generation in Singapore and Malaysia did not maintain the language as desired. But when you look at the other countries like Burma, Mauritius, and Indonesia, so there are some retention, but I don't think they have any literary skills there. The second generation, of course, lost the language, but the speakers are, in Mauritius, for example, they have schools in the officially planned schools. So they are able to maintain the language, unlike Burma and Indonesia. But in other countries, the last one, the retention of Tamil is almost lost. For example, in the French islands, Guadeloupe and Martinique and Reunion and other places, also South Africa, their language is completely lost. I had a chance to go to South Africa and Guadeloupe and offer them Tamil language instruction. When I had that experience, I realized that language retention among them was very poor. They mainly say vanakkam, that's all. In Guadeloupe, for example, they use some French mixed Tamil, Creole language, but in South Africa, we don't see that either. They mainly speak their English and other languages, but as far as Tamil is concerned, they just say vanakkam. That's all. So the language maintenance is completely lost there. So when you look at the culture, they retained culture. For example, you have a typical cuisine, the chicken Colombo. They call it Colombo, but they don't really know Colombo comes from Kulambu. When they moved to Guadeloupe from Pondicherry in 1850, they took the culture from that particular point of Tamil culture. And they had many customs like worshipping Mariamman, worshipping Madurai Veeran, and others. But the language maintenance was completely lost. They don't even know that chicken, the Colombo comes from Colombo. They still say the chicken Colombo. So that means their culture, retention of culture is different from the retention of the language. So the culture, for example, the religious culture as well as the other Tamil cultural features, they are able to retain, but the language is completely lost. So we have two extremes. One, the diaspora countries where we have a native fluency. The other extreme is they lost the language completely. So we are about to study that gradation from why particular diaspora country is able to retain the language, but not the others. So look at the names. They keep the names as such. So Modali. So obviously it is Modaliyar. So Padar means butter. Pillai, then Nair. They also have the names like Tangapen. They don't write Tangapan. They write Tangapen. Muttusami. So the way they have anglicized their name. So this is what I found. As far as the language is concerned, their culture is concerned, their religion is concerned, they are able to retain it. But the language is something that they were not able to retain it. That's mainly because, for example, if you look at I mean, these are all the reasons why they moved. Tea plantation, of course, the sugarcane industry, and all the other reasons. Especially in French islands, they moved there in 19th century from Pondicherry particularly, especially as contractual labors. So after the slavery was abolished, so the French and English people took Tamils from Pondicherry as a contractual laborers. That is how they migrated there. So after the contract was over, they were all left alone, and there were several business people. There were several laborers, and that is the situation now. So when you look at the diaspora in US, England, Canada, and Australia, particularly you see the migration, back and forth migration. They are in touch with the people in Tamil Nadu. That may be one of the reasons why we see in these countries language maintenance better than the other countries like Guadeloupe and South Africa. We have Tamil schools, Tamil Sangams, Tamil gatherings, and we can call it as a pseudo immersion. So immersion is the key word here. Immersion is important for making a native speaker. So if you don't have an immersion, you are unable to make an native speaker. That may be the reason why I said in the beginning that I was unable to make a native speaker in the US in my experience as teacher of Tamil language. So even though we make a pseudo immersion here, and later on I will share some of the experiences of the students about how that immersion is significant for the language maintenance. So the active skills of writing and speaking is poorly maintained. That is what we are struggling with. They can understand what you speak. So the Tamil is not a foreign language for them, as speech is concerned. So, I mean, the speaking, understanding is concerned. But for them to write and speak fluently is not possible at all. So there, the maintenance is lacking. The active skills. The passive skills are, of course, listening and understanding the language. So that is, they are like a native speaker in these countries, particularly US, England, Canada, and Australia. So that's something that we need to think about. So mainly in the context of heritage learners, I categorize them in four types. The true heritage learners. So they are fluent in speech and comprehension, but that particular level, we don't see many students here. Very, very rarely I see some family members, coming from a particular family, they speak well, but still they cannot write. So that is something lacking. The second track of HLL, I call it fluent in comprehension, but not in speech. So they can understand you very well. When you speak to them, they speak to them, but they can understand like a native speaker. So they will not miss anything at all. So that's very strange, but they will speak to you in English. So that's the kind of bidirectional communication between us and them. That happens. That is the typical of many of the diaspora students in the US, England, and other countries. The parents speak to them in Tamil, but the children speak to them back in English or French in France, or that's the kind of situation you can see. So language retention, language maintenance has something to do with the active and passive skill. The passive skill is possible, but not the active skill. So that is something that we need to explore. So the type 3, relatively less skill in comprehension. So it's not that all the heritage learners have a full fluency of understanding it, but there are some students who can't even understand, comprehend. So the reason may be the family situation. Father may be Tamilian and mother may be some other language speaker, that kind of situation. So where you don't see both parents are speaking Tamil, you will see the type 3 kind of students. Of course, type 4 is completely fall back. So they don't know any Tamil at all. They can't understand, they can't speak, they cannot read and write. So they are like a true language learner. So that sometimes I see many students coming in and ask for a waiver. In the US universities, we have a practice of language as second language for 4 semester skill. But these students will come and especially from type 1 and 2, they don't have a problem waiving their language skill. So they can skip the language requirement. But type 3 and type 4, they have to study at least 3 semesters, maybe 1 semester they can be waived. That is what is happening. Many students have come to me and say that my parents speak Tamil, so I want a language waiver. That kind of situations. They feel that since their parents are speaking Tamil, they can be waived for the Tamil language. But they are truly TLL, true language learners situation. So this is the basic language maintenance in the diaspora country. This is true in many of the countries like Australia, England, Canada, and other countries. Of course, this is not the case in the case of Guadeloupe and French Islands and South Africa. They are completely lost their language. So when you differentiate between heritage language learners and the true beginners, you have to see that challenges involving language education for heritage learners. So that's what we are struggling with. How are we going to teach the heritage learners? So they can understand, they cannot speak and write. So we have to impart the active skills. That is what we are struggling with. Of course, true language learners, they don't have any skill. So we have a curriculum, a clear curriculum, how to teach them. How to teach an American, for example. It's easy for us to teach an American Tamil than the heritage learners. It's because what they have learned already is harmful for a while in the Tamil language situation, in any language situation. So they have to unlearn what they learned before they learn the language again in a formal setup. So they learned the language at home, so it means an informal setup. So when we have the students in classrooms, they have to write them correctly. They have to speak in a proper way. They should be able to understand the literary style as well as the spoken style. They should be able to differentiate that. That skill they cannot get in a formal situation here. So that is what we have a curriculum called differentiated curriculum. So that is something that we make a curriculum specifically made for these heritage language learners. We cannot teach them too much. We should cater their needs. Since they understand everything, we don't have to do language quizzes and other things. We just jump into their writing skill, then speaking skill. That is how the differentiated curriculum should work. This may be true in other diaspora countries also. So is immersion absolutely necessary for language maintenance? Yes, of course. Like I mentioned before, without an immersion, true immersion means the native speakers, wherever they speak, for example, in Tamil Nadu. So what we do sometimes, we teach them 1 semester here, and there is a program like that. So we send the students to Tamil Nadu to live there for 9 months or 12 months. So they will be in an immersion situation. But when they come back, they speak well. They write somewhat. But after a while, they have to go back to that monolingual situation. They lose the language. So that means retention is not possible. Even though you put them in an immersion, that since the immersion is not in a continuous manner, once they get into that monolingual situation, they lose their skill. The language skill, of course, requires a continuity. If there is no continuity, their loss of skill is possible. That is what is happening in many among our students. Before I go here, maybe I should share one information about this student. Every 3 years, we go for a 6-week-long vacations to India, where I was forced to speak in basic Tamil to my large extended family, many of whom did not know any English. My exposure to Tamil increased dramatically as well. At the end of every trip, especially those taken when I was younger than 12 years, my spoken Tamil fluency increased somewhat noticeably. By the end of the trip, however, I would quickly return to my previous level of Tamil proficiency after being back in the US and falling back into the normal routine of solely using English in school and home. See, that is the issue. So they are into the immersion. When they come back, that immersion is discontinued, then naturally that skill is gone. So that is the kind of situation we see among many students here in the US. It may be true in other countries like Canada, Australia, and England, but this luxury doesn't exist for people in South Africa or French Islands. They don't have any relatives in Tamil Nadu. They don't go to Tamil Nadu that often. So they completely, that connection is cut off. So that means there is no way they can put themselves in an immersion situation. So this leads to loss of language completely. This is what is happening among the diaspora population. When you have occasional immersion, you are able to get a language. Then you can use that to maintain further. But if that doesn't happen, the language maintenance is completely blocked. So that is something that we need to think about and realize why some of these diaspora countries cannot maintain the language, while others can marginally maintain the language. So in among the these are all some of the other experience I would like to share with you. What happens is when learning a language in a non-immersion situation, in an informal situation, is that the language is completely fossilized. They have fossilized slangs like this. Apramelu, for example, they say many students say, but they don't know how to write that. We do that too. In Tamil Nadu, I have seen many people saying all these words in a spoken situation, but nobody writes it. We know how to write them. But these kids in a diaspora situation, they don't have a way of knowing how to write these things, these words, the fossilized slangs. So the formalization of language is a key aspect that we need to think about. That means when they have a language acquired from their family and other situations, they don't have any formal language background. They have informal language. They speak the language the way their parents speak. But when they come to schools, they are forced to follow the formal language curriculum. So I would call it formalization of language. So we need to teach them the formal grammar and tell them the difference between the spoken and written variety. So that way, they can write well and also speak well. But the problem is, among the heritage learners, we have a hard time making them understand it. So that is the problem with the fossilization. In the language process, if a student has a fossilized structure, their knowledge of further development is blocked. So that is something I learned from the heritage learners. If they have learned the language, I mean, when you look at the immersion situation, we learn the language, the spoken language, as well as the written language simultaneously. We start our language education even from first grade, right? So in the school, we are getting the formalized language. At home, we get the informal language. So we are able to compare this informal and the formal languages, especially for Tamil. It is a lot. The spoken Tamil is completely different from written variety. So where did we really get the written variety? Is that from the school, from the first grade onwards. And also we are exposed to written variety in many different ways, especially in newspaper and TVs and radio, all these places where we get that formal variety. So we didn't have a problem acquiring both the written variety as well as the spoken varieties simultaneously. But in the diaspora countries, that experience is not there. So they don't have a way of learning the written variety unless they are going to school. In the US, for example, they come to the undergraduate students come to Tamil classes like ours in the universities. We don't have high schools or middle schools having Tamil program or any other Indian language program, for example. So that means the language, the second language, the native language can be learned only at the college level, university level. So that means that formalization begins only in the college. So they missed the whole school curriculum and middle school curriculum and without any exposure to Tamil language. We do have community schools now. There are many community schools in US and in all the other countries like England, France, and Canada. But the teachers who teach there are just housewives or parents who never had a Tamil education. So they often have a problem of explaining these children about the different varieties. They are struggled with dialects, for example. I mean, there may be a Madurai dialect person. If he teaches Tamil, he can only teach the Madurai dialect. He won't be able to teach the other varieties, and he won't be able to explain the difference between these varieties, these dialects. That is the kind of situation we see in informal community schools. That is why they often invite me to give them education, how to teach Tamil to the heritage learners. We had through the American Tamil Academy, I had a chance to go to almost all the states in the US and offered teacher training institute. That means I explained to them all these formalization, how to teach the formal language. And what is formal language? That itself is missing for them. It is not a regular event. I did that a few times. That's all. That means they cannot really understand exactly what formalized language is and what literary languages, in spoken language, dialects. Tamil is a complex of many features. Like we have dialects, it's a diglossia, we have a spoken form and written form coming from the classical language. Understanding all these nuances is a challenge. But then teaching them to the students is yet another challenge. So this is what is happening in the foreign countries where the maintenance is found very hard. So this is what I made a study of, a set of heritage Tamil students belonging to university as well as heritage Tamil family members. So we made a questionnaire and went through all these factors. So one of them was motivation. Motivation was a key factor here. Some students, aside from their parents' compulsion, they have their own motivation. They wanted to learn the language on their own. You know, the motivation doesn't come from their parents. In such situations, only in those situations, I can see the students' learning is better. You know, they keep asking questions, lots of questions about what the farm is, you know, how this is different from the other. When you have that kind of situations, motivated students, language maintenance is easier. You know, we can teach them well, they can pick up the language well. But if you don't have that kind of motivation, there is no way that language maintenance is possible among them. So that it varies. There are many students who are motivated, and many students who come to study Tamil in my class, for example. I can see 80% of the students are not motivated at all. So only 20% maybe they are motivated and make me do the job really well. But the others are, you know, they want to get waived from the language requirement in the universities. So this is also is happening. So language maintenance in diaspora countries is also related to the motivation among the second generation students. So of course, the parents are very motivated. They want their kids to learn the language because it's their own mother tongue, and they want their kids to be native speakers. So that is not really helping here unless the student is motivated. This process of language maintenance in the foreign countries is not really going well. I have seen some students who have mastered the literature also, speaking well, but still the mother tongue skill is something that you can get only in the native land. The mother tongue speaking, for example, we have so many nuances in the language. All these nuances, I'm sure you can only get in the native land. You cannot teach those. So, I mean, let me give you one example. For example, several idiomatic expressions, proverbs. Many of them I learned not from the school, but from that immersion experience. So, vandama, patama, pachama, ponoma, illama. You know, this kind of expression, I never learned it in a grammar book or any classroom. I learned it only in the immersion situation, only in Tamil Nadu. But that is not taught in any of the school situation. So that is when you are able to say that. So that explains that you are a native speaker of Tamil. I mean, I can give many examples like that. Varadu, சாப்பிடுறது, தூங்குறது. Varadu, சாப்பிடுறது, தூங்குறது. You know, this particular expression. This is a true typical example of a mother tongue speaker, native speaker. So when do they say, you know, you only know, the native speaker only know. You know, how will you explain that in the classroom situation? Can you write a grammar book about how you get all these nuances? There is no way it's possible. So that means, like I mentioned before, making a native speaker in diaspora country is almost impossible. So it is only possible only when you have an immersion in the native land. This is something that we need to think about. There may be some other way of doing this, you know, make an immersion in the diaspora countries itself, you know, go set up with all these documented, and we train our teachers to teach all these skills to the diaspora students, and that hasn't happened. So this is something I want to share. And there is another factor I want to mention about there no single trait can be attributed to HLE. For example, in Tamil Nadu, we have I mean, all the dialect speakers, for example, Madurai, Coimbatore, and Tanjavur, Chennai. Let's put all these 4 people in a room. They all speak a different dialect, right? But they can understand each other. The same thing with the Sri Lankan dialect. We can understand the Sri Lankan dialect easily. The same way Sri Lankans can understand our dialect easily. So that means that's one of the features of native speakers. So we have, that is the common trait among all the native speakers. So that cannot be incorporated in a foreign situation, in diaspora countries. So if a speaker of Coimbatore dialect can only understand the Coimbatore dialect in a diaspora country. I have heard many, I have had many experience in that way. So one student will be coming to class, as soon as listening to how I speak, that student would be shocked and won't come to the class again. And when I ask why, they say, you are not speaking like my father and mother. You are speaking a different language. I don't think by learning anything from you will help me talk to my parents. The many students have left the class like that, with that kind of reasons. That's because in the diaspora countries, we have many dialect speakers. For example, in Philadelphia, I can see people from Coimbatore, Madurai, Tanjavur, all together in one region. But you can't identify one region as the Madurai speakers and one region as the Coimbatore speakers, like we do in Tamil Nadu. So that is what I call the no single trait can be attributed to HLE. The heritage language environment, we don't have that language environment here. So not all diaspora communities are alike. So you cannot say that a diaspora student from Philadelphia is the same as diaspora student from Florida or Texas. They all have different traits. So that is something that hinders the language maintenance in the diaspora country. So these are all the various factors that I acquired with my experience in this country by teaching Tamil to the heritage learners. So it's not a problem with Tamil. It is the case with other languages also. So Tamil and San, for example, they were talking about Spanish speakers. Now they have a similar situation there. You have many Spanish speakers here, the speakers from other European countries, and they all have the same situation. One thing I wanted to mention here is that, especially from the students from Russia and Korea and Japan, they pick up the language very well. The second generation students coming from these countries pick up the language very well. The reason is that their parents don't have good fluency in English. They don't speak to them in English at all. They speak to them only in their language, for example, Japanese or Korean or Russian. So naturally, they don't have a way of using the English language with their parents. They are forced to learn the language. Their language maintenance is better than any other country, for example, in India. So we are trained speakers of English. So we kind of speak the language, English language with the students, with the children. So naturally, that is a problem. When you speak to them in both English and Tamil, they only make you speak only in English because they are used to the English language in schools. So that is the another point I want to make. So many Korean students, many Russians, and Japanese, their language maintenance is better than the Tamil language maintenance here. That's because we are trained in English very well. So But there is another community, that the Gujarati communities. I have seen many Gujarati communities, the kids speak Gujarati very well. In same reason, the Gujaratis do not have that much English fluency compared to other states. So that is also something that we need to keep in mind. I mean, I can't pretend to my kids that I don't know any English. You know, that's no way it's possible. We have to be angry, then we have to speak to them the language they are familiar with. So that means that is English. So I have to yell at my kids in English language. So I have to speak to them in English for them to get a good grade in school. You know, there are some serious matters. I have to use English, you know, to deal with the kids. I cannot just speak to them in Tamil when I force them to all these things. So these are all some of the experience. I'm not sure how much time I have. So maybe we can get into question. Pardon me?
Sir,
Yeah, this is,
you can go ahead.
yeah, that's the mainly the as far as the language maintenance in diaspora countries is, you need to be able to distinguish between heritage language learners and true beginner learner. There are many students who learn the Tamil language here, you know, from Americans, for example. They learn the language for many reasons. One, their subject matter, for example, a PhD in anthropology, religion, or other subjects. They want to study Tamil because they want to do research in Tamil Nadu. But when they speak, I have a student from anthropology. He picked up language very well. He made several strategies. You know, in order to learn a language, second language, you need to have a language strategy. For example, this student, American student, whenever he comes to Tamil Nadu, he will eat only in one restaurant. He will not go around and eat in different restaurants. The reason was that whenever he goes to another restaurant, they will say, well, why are you, you know, they will have the same kind of questions, right? Are you from America? Are you studying Tamil? Why are you studying Tamil? You know, so if he goes to a different restaurant, they will ask the same questions. He has to answer the same answers. So instead, he said he would be going to only one restaurant because the people in that restaurant will not ask the same question again next time when he goes. So that is the strategy he followed to learn the language. That worked very well for him. He did a good job, and he kind of obtained a good skill in Tamil language. Think about the heritage learners. You know, how many heritage learners will be that motivated? So the motivation is the key factor here. If they are motivated, if they are compelled to learn the language maintenance is possible. It is all geared through the learner, not through the teacher. So we have all the resources, you know, to teach the language. We have a website with all the videos, and we have a grammar written in books and all. We have many resources for them to learn the language. But the language maintenance in the diaspora countries should come from the people, the second language students. They should be motivated. Unless they are motivated, learning this Tamil language as a second language is difficult. You know, that is something I learned. So I shared all my experiences. I believe that I think I have, I leave the floor open for others to comment. So thank you. Any questions?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Let's wait for a few moments for questions.
I mean, the one thing I learned was, you know, in order to understand the situations among the diaspora, I'm not sure. I went over the papers. They were all very interesting papers. I'm sure they have had a good exposure to the diaspora countries from different perspectives, not just the language. I see many interesting talks I missed them. So any thoughts about what we are going through here for the language maintenance?
So one thing I would like to ask, so we are talking about, so can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
So here we are talking about language acquisition, or usually the mother language is acquired. So what would they acquire, sir, at home, the diaspora?
The diaspora, mostly the first language in the language of that country. For example, in the US, they learn in English language, even though they acquire Tamil for a few years in at home. Once they go to school, once they get into that education, they pick up the English language fast because all the instruction is in English. All the peers speak English. They have to get into the English language. Even though they can be bilingual to certain extent, but they lose the skill after maybe after the middle school. Especially high school is very crucial here. In order to get into college, good college, and they have to study well in the high school. So that means whoever is studying Tamil language until the high school, until the middle school, they stop learning the language, Tamil language. Then they just immerse into English language. So that's something you need to think about, because their education language is English. So naturally, they are native speakers of English.
Yeah.
So they become native speakers of English.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sir, this is Neha from SRM. Sir, your session was very much helpful for us, sir. It was really informative for us. So, and my question is, since we are also not the native speakers of English, we are learning it and we are somewhat maintaining our accent to contribute something to English language. So since we have chosen English literature, the thing is, the heritage students, when they are trying to learn Tamil, what do you feel as they try? I mean, like they feel difficult when they are learning Tamil language. What do you think, sir?
Yeah, that's the good question. That because we learn English language very well, right? So we are almost like a native speaker of language, English language. That is the problem with Tamil. Tamil is a complex language. It's not like English. Learning Tamil as a first language in a diaspora country, it has its own issues. They will not be able to understand the grammar, the nuances, the way we understand English language. So there is also another study about how Indians learn many languages. We are able to learn many languages in India, including English. I have seen many people saying that they have learned 3 or 4 languages. That is, there is a paper, I don't know if you have read that. It's India is a linguistic area where we have a pan-Indian features. So Telugu, for example, is related to Tamil, Kannada, and all those languages. But as far as English is concerned, we have included that as part of our curriculum, right? So we learn science in English, math in English, and also the education. There is also English literature, but that is not the case in the diaspora countries. They only learn Tamil as a second language. They don't use Tamil in any other context. That is the reason why they are different from us. So the only situation they learn the formal language is learning the as a second language. So they can't study literature. They can't study Tamil in other subjects. That is the different situation. Spanish speakers pick up Spanish very well in some cases. In some universities, they teach Spanish from undergraduate to the PhD level. They can even write in Spanish. But that kind of situations we don't have in Tamil. They cannot just learn Tamil throughout. It's they can only have one option to learn the language as a second language. So I think that probably answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Mhm. So in SRM also they offer Tamil classes for the heritage learners, right? That's what I understood. They have classes for heritage learners from US and all. They learn Tamil language there, right?
Yes, sir. You're right.
Yeah. So I know they have classes there. There are a few classes in Pondicherry and Madurai and even in Chennai, some places. So they learn the language. The students from here come and take the language in a formal situation. We used to do it in a linguistics department in Annamalai University. We used to have some foreigners coming in and learning the language. So Professor Harold Shipman and several people came to our linguistics department, Annamalai University. They learned the language there. How the Tamil diaspora communities navigate the balance between preserving their native language and embracing proficiency in English through ELT. Tamil diaspora.
Good morning, sir.
So I read a question from you as how do they balance between preserving their native language and embracing proficiency in English through ELT? You mean the ELT is English as a second language, right? ESL, English language training. Is that what you mean by ELT?
English language teaching, sir. That's what this schema means.
English language teaching.
Second language
in the US. I don't see many Indians coming in here to teach the English language. So there are some literature scholars here in Poonam, Aurora, I think there are many people who have studied here. They did a PhD here. Then they teach the English language. I'm not sure if they can come straight from India and teach the English literature course here. So unless they take some formal education here, doing PhD in English literature, so it may be hard for them to teach the English literature classes in the US. Even though you have learned as an English literature student in India, you need some training from here to get into that literature academia. So preserving their native language and embracing proficiency in English language. I mean, first language learners will not have a problem. When you come here, I say I am a first language learner, first language speaker of Tamil language. I do not have a problem preserving it. I don't think any first that's what I say, that first generation people means that they learned the language in India and they continue to maintain here. They don't lose their skill unless they are unable to meet with others and unable to go back to Tamil Nadu, unless that kind of situation. Maintenance of Tamil language by first generation people is not an issue at all. It's because it's a mother tongue. Losing the mother tongue will not happen. That's very rarely happens. So at the same time, embracing the proficiency in English, like I acquired English in India, I continued here. So our skill in learning English language is better than them learning Tamil language as a second language. So it's a different context. So we are trained from British period onwards. So we have a good curriculum in picking up the English language in India while we are being a native speaker, So that is a different situation. I hope I have answered.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Hi, good morning.
I am Dr. Manimudi from ADM College, Nagapattinam, Tamil Nadu, sir.
Yeah.
I would like to know whether the diasporic learners try to learn or speak by observing or by translating. I mean, what is the role of translation for diasporic learners, sir?
That's what we do mostly in our classes. We ask them to translate sentences. It's not translation of a literary piece or any stories. Or that rarely happens in a diaspora situation. Learning a language as a second language, for example, Tamil, we go from the beginner. We have a beginners, intermediate, advanced. Then we have classical literature teaching. So the four levels we have. To get to that level, fourth level, the classical literature, when they learn classical poems, they attempt translation to English. That is the only way of learning the language. We have many Professor A.K. Ramanujan, you may have read his poems, translation of poems. When he made the translation of Sangam poems, it gave it was an appealing context for many learners of Tamil here. They of course, everything was in English, the Sangam poems. When they learned the Sangam poems in translation, it gave them an inspiration to learn the language, to understand Sangam poems the way we understand. So that means the translation had some impact among the language learners.
Okay, sir. Okay, fine. Thank you, sir.
The immersion can be achieved by watching Tamil movies for the diasporic Tamil learners, because I have always felt more familiar with English when watching English movies. So of course, that's true. You watching English movies and learning the English dialect, English speaking skill is different from Tamil. When you are watching the English movies, having learned English language to almost like a native speaker, right? You are not a second language speaker of English. You need to look at that very carefully. If you are a second language learner of English, if you are learning this English language as a second language, I don't think understanding English movies will be possible. At least the way all the nuances and all. It's the same situation is happening in Tamil. When a Tamil speaker is a second language speaker, second language learner, their language is very limited. As soon as they'll watch Tamil movies, of course, their comprehension may be better. They can understand when Vadivelu was making a joke, but they cannot translate it very well. And I take it back. I don't think they will understand Vadivelu's jokes that much, but they can make up the conversations. So I don't really use movies in my classrooms unless they are pedagogically prepared. In our website, we have about 45 movie clips. So they are all pedagogically prepared, their pedagogical situation. So I came to Tamil Nadu and I had a director and the actors, and I wrote down the dialogue, the dialogues, and asked them to act on it. So they were all pedagogically prepared movies. So unless we have that kind of situation, it is impossible to throw in any movie. So the movies, when you look at it, it has advanced level complexities. You are a second language learner. it is impossible for you to understand the advanced level nuances. So especially the examples I gave you, varradu, saapradhu, thunguradhu, varradu, saapradhu, thunguradhu, that kind of situation, it's impossible for them to understand and get into that context. So that is the key thing here. Learning from movies as a second language learner has its own limitations. You can understand, but you cannot speak the way they speak. In some, I'm not sure if you have watched English movies from many dialects, like New York dialect, Chicago dialects. I myself find it very hard to follow them when some of the dialects here, they speak fast. Unless you are in the culture, you won't be able to understand. I mean, movies have some impacts. You cannot say that is a solution for learning the language.
So thank you so much, sir. I think it's very late there. It's almost time for you to take a rest, right? So before we close, I would like to thank you and appreciate you for several reasons, sir. I thank you for your ready acceptance of our request to address our audience online. With no hesitation, you accepted it, for which we are grateful to you. And you are also ready to join on time, and you are staying awake at a very late hour. In the US, it's almost 12 there. So thank you very much for your patience as well as passion. And you are adding a different color to the seminar. Okay, so we are having so many deliberations on language teaching and language learning, second language teaching and second language learning here. You are talking about something which we haven't heard of, that is language maintenance, which we haven't thought of, language maintenance, which is also equally important as language learning and language teaching. So thank you for throwing throwing light on first language maintenance, and being an authentic diasporian. Okay, with a lot of examples, you illustrated so many concepts and points which would be helpful to our students as well as researchers. I'm sure that they could have picked up a lot of clues for their research, academic research. So for all these, we are grateful to you. And as to be very simple, we wish we had you in person here.
Yeah, I wish that too. I wanted there to be. I haven't attended any conference since I left Annamalai University. I used to go to the linguistics department and gave a talk there. I wish I could attend this conference in person, but I came back from Tamil Nadu just 2 weeks ago. So I was in another conference, the Tamil Computing Conference. So earlier that I was in archaeology conference. So every 2 months I was there from December. So next time.
Okay,
definitely.
So we would like to have you here. So on behalf of all the participants and the Department of English in particular, we extend our sincere thanks to you for everything you did. And once again, I conclude that we are proud of you for being an illustrious alumnus of Annamalai University.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. We'll be in touch with you. Thank you so much for the session. Good night,
Sure.
sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Definitely, I will participate in another conference in person.
Sure, sir.
Next time. Thanks to all.
So now we have offline sessions here.
Okay.
I'll be in touch with you after some time.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.